Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar from the U.S. Census Bureau on economic programs and a COVID-19 hub update. Today's webinar is being recorded and our presentation materials are going to be posted on our website at www.cml.org under training materials. For those of you who are not familiar with the GoToWebinar platform, you should see a control panel to the top right of your screen. If you see the orange arrow to the left of that panel, it will minimize the entire box for you. All participants have been muted for the webinar, but we encourage you to ask questions by typing them into the question box on the control panel. We will hold the Q&A near the end of the webinar as time permits, so please feel free to type the questions into the question box as you think of them throughout the presentation. At this time, I would like to hand things over to CML Board President Bob Widener for an introduction of our speakers.
Well, thank you very much and welcome. It is my pleasure to introduce our two excellent presenters today to our webinar. Andrew Hait is an economist and serves as the data product and data users liaison in the Economic Management Division at the U.S. Census Bureau. With over 30 years of service at the Bureau, Mr. Hait advises on economic data products and conducts data user training and outreach for the Economic Census and the Census Bureau's other monthly, quarterly, and annual economic survey programs. He is also the lead designer and coordinates the development of Census Business Builder, an innovative data tool that presents selected demographic, business, and other data in a user-friendly map-based interface. Mr. Hait holds a bachelor's degree in economics from Syracuse University and has a master's certificate in project management from George Washington University. Mr. Hait is a very popular presenter, and we're very happy to have him join us today. And welcome, Mr. Hait. Our other presenter is Earlene Dowell. Earlene Dowell is a program analyst for the Data Users Trade and Outreach branch at the U.S. Census Bureau. Ms. Dowell has been promoting and training people on LEHD products for over 10 years. LEHD makes available several online applications for dissemination and visualization to the public through quarterly workforce indicators, known as QWI. LEHD Origin Destination Employment Statistics, known as LOADS, and Job-to-Job or J2J data sets. These applications include On the Map for Emergency Management, LED Extraction Tool, QWI Explorer, and Job-to-Job Flows Explorer. Prior to joining the LEHD program, Ms. Dowell played a key role during the 2010 census in the Public Information Office and taught communication courses at the College of Southern Maryland. Ms. Dowell received her master's degree in communication and a bachelor's degree in public relations from Hawaii Pacific University. Welcome, Ms. Dowell. And at that, I will turn it over to our presenters.
Great, thank you so much. I want to say a very special thank you to my colleague Pauline Nunez from the Denver Regional Office. Pauline and I have known each other for quite a few years. And so when Pauline called and said she wanted to see if I would be interested in doing a presentation for your program for the Colorado Municipal League, I cheered on the inside. So thank you so much, Pauline, for giving me an opportunity to present to this great group. Again, my name is Andy Hait. I'm an economist at the Census Bureau. And today we're going to talk about a part of the Census Bureau that a lot of people don't realize now exists. Now, you'd have to be living under a rock to not know that we just completed collecting one of the largest undertakings that we do here in the United States. Every 10 years, we do a complete comprehensive count of everybody who's living here in the United States. It's called the Decennial Census. However, we do much more than just simply count the US population once every 10 years. In fact, if I had $1 for every time someone said to me, I know what you guys do once every 10 years, what do you do the other 9? I would be retired by now. In fact, we conduct more than 130 monthly, quarterly, annual, and periodic programs each and every single year. They include a number of demographic programs like the Decennial Census and the American Community Survey, or the ACS. The ACS is a program that many of you are probably very familiar with, provides an amazing wealth of demographic, socioeconomic, and housing data that you all can use to understand the demographics and the people that live in your municipalities. However, we also conduct 58 business surveys. Every 5 months, we also do a census of governments, and then we have ongoing monthly, quarterly, and annual programs. So today, we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about those programs. Now, when I do presentations about our data, this slide is one of the ones I almost always incorporate because it gives you an indication of the levels of geography that we publish at the Census Bureau. This is not the full list. It is the sort of the most popular ones, but you can see that this includes municipality level information, or what we call a place, but it also breaks down data down to state legislative districts, census tracts, etc. The red highlighted geographies on this slide are the ones that we publish in our economic programs, in our business surveys. So you'll notice that the most detailed data that we publish at the Census Bureau from our business surveys is down to zip code level, as well as by place. We do not break out our business data down to those other geographies, including things like census tracts. And the single biggest reason why we don't is privacy. The Census Bureau is committed to protecting the privacy of people and businesses who respond to our programs. And if we try to slice and dice the 7 million employer businesses and the 24 million self-employed people in the United States down to geographies below the place and zip code level, and still try to publish the full breadth of industry detailed data, we would end up having to suppress such a large portion of the data, because so often we would find cases where there may only be a single grocery store, let's say, in a certain census tract, or a single doctor's office. Obviously, we couldn't publish the data for that industry because publishing the information for that geography and that industry would disclose the identity of that particular business. Now, as I mentioned, we conduct 58 business surveys. And the pyramid on the right is the one that I always love to use to illustrate not only the hierarchy of our monthly and quarterly surveys versus our annual programs versus the economic census, but also speak a little bit to the level of detail that is shown. At the very top of the pyramid, our most detailed programs, most timely programs are the monthly economic indicators. At the very top, they are very timely, but they are not very detailed when it comes to the geographic information that is shown and the industry and the data variables. At the bottom of the pyramid, however, is the economic census, sort of the opposite of timely, but certainly our most detailed programs. As I walk through this pyramid, I'm going to highlight the programs that specifically publish data at the municipality level, or that have information that you all, being working in municipalities, might be interested in at the county level or other geographies. I'm going to pass over a lot of our programs that only publish national level data, because while they may be valuable to a lot of folks, I suspect that they probably are not going to be as valuable to you all from a municipality perspective. So at the very top of the pyramid is the economic indicators. Every single month, we publish 17 of the leading economic indicator surveys that you hear about on the evening news. These include monthly surveys like the monthly retail trade report. They include some quarterly surveys like the quarterly services survey. Most of these programs are shown at the national level, but there are 2 programs that publish data below the national level. Each and every single month, we publish detailed information on new residential building permit issues. So if you are looking at economic growth in a particular part of Colorado, and you are using the issuance of building permits as an indicator of when future economic growth is going to happen there, when a builder comes in to build a set of single-family homes, let's say, the very first thing they do is they pull the permits for those to build those houses. Every month, we publish information for residential building permits, and the data are published down to the permit issuing area level. So that means, for example, if the city of Denver issues its own building permits, we would publish data at the city or municipality level. If a particular county in Colorado issues residential building permits for homes built in their county, then we would publish county level data. This is a great resource because it gives you this information about potential future economic growth. The other program that we publish every single month that is very useful for municipalities is our trade data. Yes, the Census Bureau actually publishes imports and exports data. The data are published by commodity, by geography, both in terms of the US geography and the countries that they are going to. The data are published at the state, district, and port levels. And I want to remind you all that port does not just necessarily mean water. It also includes airports. So if I wanted to know something about the exports of beer out of the Denver airport, that type of information is included in our international trade data. These trade information can be especially valuable to businesses because it helps them identify potential markets for their products. We all know that during the pandemic, businesses have really struggled, and one of the things that they've done to deal with the pandemic struggles is to rethink their markets, to identify other people, other places, other geographies that maybe they might want to think about selling their products to. A lot of US manufacturers that previously had relied on domestic customers for their products now have looked into international markets, and knowing something about how much of their products that they make, the products that they make that are made by other companies like them, knowing how much of those products are exported every single year, where are they leaving the country, what port are they leaving the country from, and knowing which country they're going to could be very valuable to a business person who is trying to make sure their business stays alive. Now, the data for the International Trade Program is not released on the main Census Bureau's website. It is released on a data tool called USA Trade Online. I have included the link to this tool here on the slide. We are going to be making these slides available to you all afterwards. And all of the data I'm going to talk about today is available to you for free. I always tell folks, nothing from the federal government is truly free. It's just that you already paid for it. So if you've already paid for it, why are you not using it? You do need to sign up to use USA Trade Online, but once you sign up, there's no cost. You never have to sign up again, and then you have completely unfettered access to all the trade data we publish each and every single month. Now, the next tier of the pyramid is our annual programs. These provide more detailed statistics than what are shown in our monthly and quarterly surveys. Like the monthly and quarterly surveys, these are mostly sample surveys, and there are a number of them that are also shown at the national level, but there are two that I have highlighted here that publish data down to the county, and even one of the two down to the zip code level, and they are county business patterns and non-employer statistics. If you leave today and learn nothing else from me but this, county business patterns and non-employer statistics are your best friends at the Census Bureau, at least in terms of the business data. County Business Patterns publishes information every single year by detailed industry on employer businesses, businesses with one or more paid employees. So if I wanted to know how many breweries are there in Denver County, those data would be published in the County Business Patterns program. However, there may be some really small little mom and pop type breweries also in Denver County. Those businesses, what we typically think of as self-employed people, 1099 workers, whatever, are known as non-employers at the Census Bureau, and we have a special program that we do each and every year that publish information on non-employer businesses. If you add together the businesses in county business patterns and the businesses measured by non-employer statistics, that will account for about 98% of all businesses in the United States. The missing 2% are for some industries that we don't cover at the Census Bureau, including things like farms. Agriculture is not covered by census because USDA does. So these are two fantastic programs that you all should know about. Now, in addition to the private sector, we also publish data on the public sector. state and local governments. One of the things that we all know is that during the pandemic, not only are households and people and businesses being impacted, but so are local governments. The tax revenues that state and local governments are seeing has been greatly impacted by the pandemic. So each and every year we publish a number of programs on the public sector. These programs are unique in one or two ways. First of all, because these statistics are considered public record, there's virtually no confidentiality restrictions. That means that I can actually go into our public sector data sets and look at individual government reports and pull up information on government employment and payroll and expenditures and revenue streams and debts, etc., on an individual government type basis. In addition, unlike our other programs, which are mostly mandatory surveys, response to this survey, these programs are voluntary. The US federal government is prohibited by the Constitution from forcing state and local governments to respond to federal government programs. We ask very nicely, please, please, please fill out our surveys, but these are voluntary surveys. The data are released in a number of different formats. Which brings us to the Economic Census, that big 5-year program that we do each and every year. This is by far our most detailed economic data set. And as you can see, I have highlighted the word place here. This is the primary location that you're going to be able to get comprehensive city, town, village, and borough level business data from the Census Bureau. Now, these data are just for employer businesses. Those self-employed people are still covered by non-employer statistics. They're just not in the economic census. This is our most detailed program, not only in terms of industry and geography, but in terms of the other dimensions that we publish. I get a lot of questions about, do we publish data on small business? Yes, we do. The question I always then ask is, well, what do you mean by small? Is your definition of small based upon the size of the individual establishment? We've got that. Is it based upon the size of the firm, the company? We have that too. Or is it based upon how many employees they have or what their revenue is? We have that as well. It is also our most detailed program in terms of the data variables that are shown. And this is one program that publishes product lines to data. So if you want to understand what are the individual products and services being provided by businesses in your state, those data are available in our product lines report. These NAPS, North American Product Classification System data, can be very valuable to business owners because it allows them to compare the products and services that they provide in their business to the products and services that other businesses like them provide. Helps them understand maybe some opportunities to add products and to sell things that they maybe currently don't sell. Now, a very common question I get when I'm doing presentations about our economic programs is, does the Census Bureau publish information on minority-owned business or on women-owned business? The answer is yes. We do a survey now every year called the Annual Business Survey, ABS, that publishes information on the race, ethnicity, gender, and veteran status of the business owner. This program replaces something that we used to publish every 5 years called the Survey of Business Owners, or SBO. Some of you may be familiar with that old survey. People loved SBO, but the bummer was it was only available once every 5 years. Now we have this information available every single year. So you're going to get information on how many Hispanic-owned businesses are there in the state of Colorado, in Denver County, in your metropolitan areas, and even in your individual cities, towns, villages, and boroughs, places. We have data on women-owned business. We have data on veteran-owned business. And many of these categories are cross-tabbed. So female veteran is a breakout that we have. Now, the level of detail that is shown does vary by geography. At the national and state level, we publish data on the full hierarchy of the North American industry classification systems, whereas at the county, metro, and place level, it's just totals. So you're not going to get that breakout of manufacturing versus retailing versus healthcare. It's just going to be a total. Now, you will also notice that this program only covers employer businesses, those businesses with paid employees. And some of you who may be familiar with the Survey of Business Owners maybe say, hey, wait a minute, Andy, SBO covered both employers and non-employers. What gives? It's really important for me to understand those non-employer minority-owned businesses because they account for a substantial chunk of the businesses in my community. What are you telling me? You mean I don't have that data? Well, calm down. We actually now do. Just a couple of months ago, we released for the very first time a brand new program called Non-Employer Statistics Demographics. This is a corresponding survey to ABS that publishes the same type of data, but for self-employed people. So basically, if you add the ABS data plus the non-employer statistics data together, you will end up with the total of women-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned, Hispanic-owned, et cetera, businesses in the state of Colorado, and then down to your more detailed geographies. As you can see throughout all these slides, I've been including the links to all these different data. I would encourage you all to check these out. I don't have the time, obviously, today to go through all of them, but I would really encourage you all to visit them. Now, we have all these great programs, and your obvious question is now going to be, okay, that's great. You have all these. How can I get to them? We have a number of different data tools at the Census Bureau that allow you to get access to the data. At the top of this list is a tool called QuickFacts. Provides some selected information, economic and demographic data. It's really simple to use, but pretty limited in terms of its detail. We also have a tool called My Congressional District that lets you look at the data, some of the data that we publish at the congressional district level. So if you want to see how our congressional districts within Colorado structured, what's the population mix, what's the demographics and the business mix in each congressional district, that data is available through the tool My Congressional District. Now, some of the other tools I have on this list are ones that we're going to be covering today in a little bit more detail. In a few minutes after my colleague Earlene gets to speak, I'm going to talk a little bit about the COVID-19 Data Hub, but I do also want to now quickly talk to you about a tool that is near and dear to my heart, Census Business Builder. CBB was created to make it easier for people to access selected information from the Census Bureau for the type of business that they want to research or the area that they wanted to study. This tool was designed because of some concerns that users were having with accessing data in our old American Fact Finder application. Many of you know American Fact Finder was sunsetted and has now been replaced by data.census.gov. It's an amazingly powerful application, but a little bit hard for the average person to use. So we built a tool called Census Business Builder that presents selected information to you. Again, I'm not going to have a chance today to do a demo of these two, but I did want to tell you that there are actually two editions of Census Business Builder. At the top of the slide is what we call our Small Business Edition. This version was created specifically for entrepreneurs and small business owners. It allows them to choose the type of business that they want to research, the geography that they want to research, and it then presents about 180 different statistics from across the Census Bureau, across the federal government, and even some third-party data for them to use to make the decision, is this a good place for me to open the restaurant that I'm considering opening? Now, while Small Business Edition was designed specifically for entrepreneurs, we have a wide variety of other users that are now using it. Grant writers, for example, really like CBB Small Business Edition because it allows them to access the key data that they need for their grant proposal without having to wade through the weeds in American Fact Finder or now data.census.gov. Now, after Small Business Edition went live in 2015, we got approached by some folks from the Association of Chamber of Commerce Executives, ACCE. They really liked the Small Business Edition, but what they wanted was a special edition that allowed them, number one, to look at all the businesses in their area, in their Chamber of Commerce, not just one business at a time, that the way the Small Business Edition does, But more importantly, it would allow them to build their own custom region. As you all know, chambers of commerce often represent more than a single city or more than a single county. You have these regional chambers that represent a group of maybe 3 or 4 counties in Colorado. For them, they want to be able to build a custom region that represents the area that they service, and they then want to be able to look at the aggregated data for that multi-county, multi-city, multi-census tract level area. So that's what the Regional Analyst Edition is for. I'm actually going to be doing a webinar tomorrow on these 2 editions on version 3.3 of Census Business Builder. I would encourage you all to attend. The information about the webinar is available up on our Census Bureau website. So with that, I want to turn it over now to my colleague Earlene, so she can go ahead and actually talk with you about a whole other part of the Census Bureau that I think you all would be really interested in. So Earlene, it's all yours.
Thank you, Andy. Sorry about that. I had to unmute. So thank you, everyone, for the opportunity to share the longitudinal employer household dynamics products with you. LEHD is a voluntary federal-state partnership that was developed in the 1990s with just a few states. Under the partnership, states send their unemployment insurance wage records and their quarterly census of employment wage data to us, which then is combined with censuses and surveys to create a new dynamic information on workers to produce public use data products as well as microdata for research. The UI records give us job data, the QCEW gives us firm data, and our person data comes from the censuses and surveys. When I first started promoting LEHD in 2010, we had 2 data sets and 3 data tools. Now, LEHD has 5 different data sets with 7 applications for easy access to these data sets. Each data set, along with each data tool, is unique in its own way. If you are curious about employment hires, separations, turnovers, and earnings, you would look at the quarterly workforce indicators, or QWI, utilizing the QWI Explorer or the LED extraction tool. This data set is also accessible through the Census Bureau API. If you want to look at employment for detailed and customized geography, you would look at the LEHD Origin Destination Employee Statistics or loads data using the On the Map or On the Map for Emergency Management data tools. One sidebar, On the Map for Emergency Management is the only data tool that has population data along with the data from other federal agencies in LEHD. If you want to look at statistics or job mobility across state boundaries or industries, transitions between jobs by timing and firm or worker characteristics, or earning changes due to job changes, you would use our job-to-job or J2J flows data using the J2J Explorer. One of our newer data sets is the Post-Secondary Employment Outcomes, or PSEO. This experimental data set reports earnings by institution, degree field, degree level, and graduation cohort for 1, 5, and 10 years after graduation. The current release includes University of Texas System, public institutions in Colorado, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania State University, and the CUNY SUNY of New York. Future releases will include most post-secondary institutions. Finally, our latest data set, Veterans Employment Outcomes, or VEO. This new experimental data set reports earnings and employment outcomes for U.S. Army veterans 1, 5, and 10 years after discharge by military occupation, rank, demographics, industry, and geography of employment. In addition to the data tools, raw data downloads are available along with LEHD microdata for approved projects through our secure census research data centers. Out of these 5 data sets and 7 data tools, I wanted to show you 2 that I thought would be relatable and interesting. This is a screenshot of all the municipal boundaries of Colorado. I downloaded and imported the shapefiles into the On the Map. On the Map is a web-based mapping and reporting application that shows where workers work and where they live. It provides companion reports on age, earnings, industry distribution, race, ethnicity, educational attainment, and sex. We have data from 2002 through 2018 for most of the 50 states, including DC. You can customize the selection area as low as the census block with disclosure protection. And input-output reports are available, which means you can import and export shapefiles and download and print reports. Using On the Map, those employed in the area equals 1,760,889 for private primary jobs in 2018. Let's go live to look at all the characteristics this area profile analysis offers. So here you can see, and I hope you can, this is not blocking your way. So you can see that this is the screenshot that I had shown previously, and I just wanted to scroll down on the right-hand side where it shows the total private primary jobs for 2018. And then we can see 3 categories of the worker age, and majority of them being age 30 to 54. If you scroll down more, you can see what the earnings are, and majority of them earning more than $3,333 per month. And then you can go ahead and just scroll down all of the different NAICS industries. We can see what the worker race is. We can also look at the worker ethnicity and the worker educational attainment, and then worker sex. You can also change it. So I went ahead and clicked on in the lower left-hand corner where it says change settings. I wanted to show you all of the different options that you have here. So here on this analysis settings, you can look at where the worker lives or where the worker works. And it's clicked on to work. So that's what we're looking at, where the worker works. It also has 5 different analyses types. So we can see the area profile, which is what we're looking at now, which gives you an overview of everything that's here. We can also look at area comparison, where you can actually compare worker characteristics such as job characteristics and geography. So we can look at zip codes, we can look at industries, we can look at earnings, we can look at age, we can look at race and ethnicity. The next one is the distance direction. This tells you how far people are traveling to their workplace and what directions they're coming from. The destination tells us what city, county, metro area, zip code, or block people are traveling from to work in the selected areas. And then you can tell how many people are traveling into the area to work, how many people live and work in the area, and how many people travel out of the area to work using the inflow-outflow. So a lot of our states go from 2018 all the way to 2002, and also in the loads data, we actually do have federal data, just not military data, not any of those secret services like CIA, FBI, DEA, and the Homeland Security. So going back to the PowerPoint, the other data tool I wanted to highlight is the PSEO Explorer, or our post-secondary employment outcomes. This experimental tabulation tabulates and highlights the employment and earnings outcomes for colleges and university graduates by matching university transcript data with a national database of jobs. PSEO provides annual earnings of graduates in the 25th, 50th, and 75th percentile and traces graduate movements from post-secondary institution, degree level, and degree major to employment by industry and geographic labor markets. Transcript data is provided to the Census Bureau by higher education systems and individual colleges and universities through data sharing agreements with the Census Bureau. This is a screenshot of the University of Colorado Boulder, highlighting business management, social science, and communications. Here we can see the earnings after 1 year, 5 year, and 10 years post-graduation. According to this chart, business management after 10 years is the most lucrative. In an article from the Corridor News, it featured the University of Colorado and those 3 programs. Important to the analysis of career paths, PSEO also measures how specific majors transition into highly related fields. It's clear that graduates in communications are more likely to land jobs in professional services, information, and retail industries, while social science and graduates are more likely to end up in education and health. Business majors are heavily concentrated in the finance, insurance, and professional services. So let's go live again. And here I already pulled up the PSEO Explorer, and then I went ahead and wanted to show you that not only can we see what industries these graduates are going into, but we can also look at the geography. So here you can see that many of the students that get their degrees from Boulder are staying in Colorado. And then the next higher geography would be the Pacific, and then Mid-Atlantic, East, North, Central, South Atlantic, and so on. So in conclusion, even though I only touched on 2 of our tools, I hope I was able to provide how these tools help to provide real world context for the data by enabling easy comparisons over time, geography, and characteristics. Visualization changes the way we understand the statistics and lead directly to greater insights, which can lead to more relevant and impactful storytelling. And with that, I hand it back to Andy.
Great, thank you so much, Earlene. So let me go ahead and again show my screen. So as you can see, the LEHD program provides an amazing wealth of information. I especially love the On the Map tool because being able to look at the flows of workers, people who work in Washington, D.C., where are they coming from? I think about sort of the transportation planning sort of characteristics that are related to that particular thing. So let's now change gears and talk a little tiny bit about COVID. Of course, you know that we could not possibly pass up the opportunity to talk about COVID in terms of the data that we have at the Census Bureau. So as we were entering the pandemic, Census realized that we had a lot of information that users could use to understand the potential impacts of the pandemic. Programs like the American Community Survey provide an amazingly rich set of demographic, socioeconomic, and housing data, and those data could be very useful to help people understand how the pandemic might spread. We knew at the beginning of the pandemic that older people were likely being impacted differently than younger people were. So understanding the mix of people by population, by age, could be very valuable. However, we realized that a lot of those sort of historical Census Bureau programs, like the Economic Census, County Business Patterns, Non-Employer Statistics, the American Community Survey, while they can be very valuable to measure the potential impacts of the pandemic, they weren't going to be quite as useful to measure the actual impacts. Yes, we have those monthly economic surveys that produce information to show how the how the retail economy, for example, or the combination food services industries have been impacted on a monthly basis, but those data are available at the national level. Yes, we can see definitely that accommodation food services, which includes restaurants, had a substantial impact due to the pandemic. But we also knew that we were going to have to do something a little different. So what you're looking at right now on the slide are a number of programs, 6 to be specific, that were specifically stood up during the pandemic to help people understand the potential impact of the pandemic. In the top right-hand or top left-hand corner of this grid, you'll see a program called Weekly Business Formation Statistics. We knew pretty early on that not only were existing businesses being impacted, but so were startups. The Census Bureau actually has a relationship with the Internal Revenue Service where each and every single month we get a feed of people who have requested an employer identification number from the IRS. If I was thinking about retiring from the Census Bureau and I wanted to open Andy's Taverna, a nice Greek restaurant, I would need to actually contact the IRS to request an employer identification number so I could start reporting my employment and my payrolls, et cetera, to the IRS. We started noticing a marked decline in those EIN filings from the IRS, and we decided that instead of just simply taking that data and aggregating it annually, the way that we had in the old business formation statistics program, that we would instead take that information and start publishing it weekly. And you could actually see on a state-by-state and county-by-county basis how business startups were impacted at the very beginning of the pandemic and how they've now begun to rebound as businesses who had put their plans on hold are now coming back online or now starting up. The second program there across the top is our Small Business Pulse Survey. Some of you may have heard of this program. This program specifically measures how small businesses are being impacted by the pandemic. Data are shown at the national and state levels. There are some selected metropolitan area level data available. And yes, the Denver Metro is included in that set of metro level data that shows how small businesses in the state of Colorado and specifically in Denver have been impacted. They just announced at the Census Bureau that phase 3, which had ended before of this survey, is now, we're now standing up, potentially standing up a phase 4. We knew that small businesses continue to struggle in recovering and that it would be good for us to continue to measure them. Now, the third one across the top is something called Community Resilience Estimates. And of these 6 programs, this is one that I suspect is going to live the longest beyond the pandemic. CRE was specifically stood up to understand how resilient communities were to the COVID-19 pandemic. So the risk factors that were applied in this program were risk factors that are related to the pandemic. However, as we're thinking beyond the pandemic, we realize that if we change those risk factors and assigned different risk factors to the American Community Survey data, the micro data that CRE is based on top of, that we could end up creating a program that provides information about resilience of communities to other sorts of disasters, fires, floods, hurricanes, tornadoes, etc. So I'm going to put a plug in right now for this program to let you know that the staff for the CRE program are actively seeking comments on our plans to carry this program forward in the future. So if you have thoughts on what types of risk factors would be very important for you to understand how resilient communities in Colorado are to the types of disasters that you have unfortunately encountered in Colorado, including the fires that you had last year, please, please, please let us know. Now, the next one across the top is the Household Pulse Survey. Just as we created a Small Business Pulse Survey, we also similarly published information on how households, on how people were being impacted by the pandemic. Again, the data are shown at the national and state levels. There are some smaller levels of geography available as well. Now, the last 2 I want to quickly talk about start to measure some other things, and these are the two newest of our experimental data products. Not only did we know that small businesses and households were being impacted, but we also knew that state and local governments were being impacted in terms of their sales tax collections. As you all, I'm sure, know, some states rely on sales taxes more than others. Some states have no sales tax. So this particular program, Selected Monthly State Sales Tax Collections, looks at on a monthly basis how state and local governments have been impacted in terms of their sales tax collections. I know I can at least speak for the state that I live in here in Maryland, that Maryland has seen a marked decline in sales taxes, specifically for gasoline sales taxes, because such a large portion of the state of Maryland workforce works for businesses where we've been able to 100% telework. So very little gasoline being consumed in the big honkin' truck I bought back in September. In addition, the last program I have here is our retail data. Now, I mentioned before that we publish a monthly economic indicator that looks at retail sales, but those data are only available at the national level. And people have said, Andy, the impact to retail is not consistent across every state in the nation. Are you guys going to do something to look at monthly retail sales, but on a state-by-state basis? And the answer is yes. We have now started publishing monthly state retail sales. This slide actually needs to be corrected. Now, we've got these 6 programs. We have the American Community Survey. We have all these business data that can be useful to understand the impacts of the pandemic. Of course, we could be mean and make you all wade through each of these individual program pages, but instead what we decided to do was create a special hub where these data will all reside, and that is what you're looking at on the slide right now. This is the COVID-19 Data Hub, a screenshot of 2 of the major components of it. I just did a webinar last week on version 2.0 of this hub. The recording is already posted. I'd encourage you all to check it out, but I would also encourage you to actually go to the hub and see what's available here as well. One of the main things that we added in version 2.0 that actually warranted it getting a 2.0 designation is we added links to 38 data sets from across the federal government and even third-party data providers that users could use to mash up that data with Census Bureau data. For example, let's say you wanted to compare the small business impact to in the state of Colorado as measured in the Small Business Pulse Survey, and you wanted to see how well did the PPP loans that got distributed to businesses across the country, how well did those PPP loans align with the business impacts in the state of Colorado? Did Colorado, quote unquote, get its share of PPP money, or did maybe other states get more? That type of mashup can now be done because we've now added not only CARES Act, but PPP data as well. There's social vulnerability index information available now in this new 2.0 version of the hub, and a wealth of other data. I am especially proud of this project, not only because I worked on it, but also because we included not only government data, but third-party data as well. There are a lot of companies like Google that are aggregating information that could be very useful to understand the potential impacts of the pandemic. We've included about a dozen of those 38 data sets, a little more than a dozen, are from third-party data providers. There's one that I'm especially interested in from an organization, a business called Womply, that is actually looking at business closure information. So businesses that weren't just simply impacted, they actually were closed because of the pandemic. So that was a very quick run through of the resources we have at the Census Bureau when it comes to our business data. I want to make sure that we save some time for the questions at the end. So just to summarize, we have a lot of data. If you were not already familiar with the Census Bureau and the different economic business programs that we publish, I would encourage you to browse our website or maybe give me a holler and I'll walk through a lot of these programs that I couldn't spend quite as much time on as I would have liked to. We have a lot of data. These data are especially useful when you merge them across programs. So tools like Census Business Builder that allow you to mash up data from the American Community Survey and business data tell you an interesting portrait of your municipality. For example, I was working with some folks in northern New Jersey in Hudson County in the city of Jersey City, And they were working on some special programs that they were adopting to try to encourage minority and specifically Hispanic business ownership in that area of New Jersey. One of the key factors that they were trying to measure was how does the business ownership mix compare to the demographic mix of the people that live in that particular area. They wanted to compare the percent Hispanic in that county to the percent Hispanic owned businesses in that county. Census Business Builder allows them to very easily do that, to mash those two things up. And they use that mashup and that comparison to show those inequities that exist and then request funding to actually begin to address those. Now, within your municipalities, you have a lot of businesses who need comprehensive and reliable data that they can use to guide the decisions that they're making about their business. We'd really love it if you all would encourage them to add our data to the arsenal of other data that they use. We know that businesses turn to their trade associations, to their own particular sector in their own industries, and to other groups like small business development centers to help them run their business and kind of understand their markets. We'd like you to encourage them to use our data. And chances are, there's many of those businesses in Colorado may also be ones that were selected for our surveys. The rule of thumb at the Census Bureau is the quality of the data we collect is directly proportional to the quality of the data we publish. Garbage in, garbage out. That rule applies at the Census Bureau as it does in a lot of other places. And the quality of our data is also based upon how timely businesses respond. We are pretty nerdy at the Census Bureau. In most of our business surveys, we have a 70% minimum response rate. So we will follow up with businesses who have not responded, but getting the support from local government officials and local data users to say to that local business owner who's really not thrilled about filling out their comprehensive Census Bureau form about their business, to say it's really important that you do, because the data that comes from your response can be useful to you when you're comparing your business to others like you. So with that, I am done. This slide includes my email address and phone number, as well as Earlene's email address and phone number. You can tell that neither of us are shy, so we would love to be able to chat with you about some of the programs we talked about, either via email or via phone. These are our desk phone numbers, so I would encourage you to just leave a message and then we'll get back to you. None of us have been in the building since March of last year. It's likely we're not going to be back in the building for quite some time now. But with that, let me go ahead and see if there are any questions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Andy, for all of that information you just shared with us. There currently are not any questions, so just a reminder, please enter in your questions into the question panel so that we can share those questions with Andy and with Earlene. In the meantime, I do want to mention that CML has created a resource page for topics related to equity and diversity, which I know was not our topic today, but just so you know, we are asking for any additional contributions that you may have for that page. You can find the information at www.cml.org/equity. And if you do have additional information to share, if you wouldn't mind sending it to Sarah Warner, the Engagement and Communications Manager. Her email is swerner@cml.org, and I can also put that in the chat. There still are not any questions, so just one more plug here. CML is also about to have our legislative workshop. It'll be next Friday. Or, I'm sorry, next Thursday. That's definitely incorrect. You have until Wednesday at 3 p.m. to register, so please visit our website for more information about that. And I do have some questions coming in here. The first one is from Corey. Corey's asking if you would please confirm how we could access the On the Map and PSEO Explorer features.
It sounds like it's right up your alley, Earlene.
Oh, okay. So I guess the easiest way for you to do that would be the it's lehd.ces.census.gov. And that'll take you there. the fastest. Also in the PowerPoint that I'll make sure that you all have, there is a link to that, to both the PSEO and the On the Map for you.
Great, thank you so much. Our next question comes from Jonathan. Jonathan is wondering if the census holds workshops around connecting to this data through API.
So yeah, we do. Earlene mentioned that some of the data from the LEHD program are available in the API. Much of the other data that I talked about, the economic census, county business patterns, non-employer statistics, a lot of those other data programs are available in our API too. And yes, there are webinars and workshops that we do. There's also some that we've done in the past that are available as a recorded link. So you can actually go in and check out that pre-recorded webinar that we did before. What I'd encourage you to do is send me an email and I will send you a link to where those recorded webinars are. And if you're actually interested in hosting one yourself, again, let me know that as well and we can set that up. The tip I usually tell people when they're thinking about consuming data from the API is APIs really are designed for developers. Certainly need to know something about the whole concept of pulling data, but the result of doing that work can be really impactful. You can pull information from our API in a way that is much easier than if you were pulling it from data.census.gov. In fact, our Census Business Builder data tool is completely built on top of our API. And so all the data that comes into Census Business Builder comes in via API. So yeah, it's a great resource. The number of data sets that is in the API keeps growing each and every day. We're almost at 300 data sets right now. A great question.
Awesome, thank you so much. So it does look like that was our last question. I did want to send a note to everyone letting you know that there are local contacts for the census as well. I am going to put an email address in the chat for everyone if you are interested in reaching out. Her name is Lily. She's absolutely wonderful, and she will be able to help you with any questions that you may have additionally. A few people have asked if this is being recorded and if the slides will be available for links and such. And yes, it will. You will be receiving an email tomorrow as a follow-up, and this information will also be posted onto our website, again at www.cml.org under training materials. I do want to throw out there, Andy and Earlene, there was a comment that this presentation was absolutely wonderful, so great job. And that does seem to be oh, I'm sorry, one more sec. I'm going to send everybody one more. I do apologize. I'm going to send one more link to everyone for the upcoming webinars with the U.S. Census Bureau. So that does appear to be everything. I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us, and thank you again, Andy and Earlene, for sharing this wonderful knowledge with us. Once again, this will be posted to our website at www.cml.org under training materials. Thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.